Hill, when I first got to France and read the critiques of René, Godard, Truffaut, Romer, I didn't know who the hell they were talking about, no. But that's the way film should be. An artist should not moralize. The person who has the audacity to make a film in the first place shouldn't never consciously put his own neuroses on screen.
From 1947 to 1962, Nicholas Ray directed some of the most richly personal work in American cinema. Yet in 1971, when he accepted a teaching post at Harper College in Binghamton, New York, he had not completed a film in nearly a decade. At Binghamton, Ray trained his students to be a working production unit, teaching them filmmaking by shooting a feature film as a collaborative, creative effort under his supervision.
All right, places, please, places.
Scene, one H, take one.
Action.
Born in 1911, Nicholas Ray left his hometown of La Crosse, Wisconsin at 16 to study under Frank Lloyd Wright. After a brief university career, Ray emigrated to New York City at the height of the Depression. There he became involved in the lively experimental theater of the 30s, working as an actor with such politically progressive groups as the Workers' Theater and the Federal Theater Project, which included the Living newspaper. It was there that Ray learned the improvisational methods that he would employ in Hollywood and would still be using with his students in Binghamton more than 30 years later.
It began on East 12th Street, not a few blocks from here. Led to my association with Kazan and Houseman, from whom I learned more than any other two people in the world. I worked in a workers' theater. We graduated to Broadway. And somehow or other, one day, Kazan said, come on, you've been spending enough time in radio, theater, television. I'm going out to Hollywood to make my first film. Come on along and help me.
Nick had come to New York during the depths of the Depression, when life was very strange, sort of rather desperate, and at the same time extremely hopeful, and there was almost no limit to the dreams one could have, because everything was so terrible that everything was dreams. Nick was himself a very vulnerable, very sensitive, almost too sensitive person in some ways, and in some ways very aggressive and assertive, in other ways extremely reticent and shy. And that combination is very good for a director with actors. Particularly, his real talent lay in what he could do with very young and tender and sensitive and insecure people, like Cathy O'Donnell, Farley Granger. Nick has always made, almost all his best pictures, actually, have been about people whom society was oppressing and society was crushing, and who were almost doomed to be defeated by society. Well, Nick himself is not altogether outside that category.
He's a con artist, and he knows how to manipulate people, if that's an acceptable word, but that's part of the talent of a director. He's always wanted to be cherished by young people, and he scorns his own generation, which has rejected him, apparently. And he just likes working with young people. As far as his role in the film, which is an essential part of the whole film, he's, as a character, I guess he's something like the parole officer in Rebel, always caring for young people, and he's been like a father to us, and a counselor, and a teacher at the same time.
That seems even okay.
How did Bogart take to playing the part of the writer in A Lonely Place, which is rather a departure for him?
Well, I had taken the gun away from his hand for the first time in Knock on Any Door. And the second time, he was ready for it, a little bit more ready for it. And he obviously loved it. It's one of his favorite films. But it was a very personal story. A very personal story. The last part of it I had written with Andrew Solt, and Solt had headed east. In the meantime, I had separated from my wife, Gloria Grahame, who was playing opposite Bogey. And if I had let the producer, Bobby Lord, or Bogey know that, they would have gone crazy, or Harry Cohn would have gone crazy. And so I said, well, look, I'm having trouble with the third act. Make an apartment for me out of a couple dressing rooms, because I don't want to drive to Malibu every night. And I want to get down and get on stage and work at night, which I did. And Gloria behaved beautifully. Nobody knew that we were separated. And I just couldn't believe the ending that Bundy and I had written. I shot it because it was my obligation to do it. Then I kicked everybody off stage except Bogart, Art Smith, and Gloria. And we improvised the ending as it is now. The original ending we had written so that it was all tied up into a very neat package with Frank Lovejoy coming in and arresting him as he was writing the last lines, having killed Gloria. And I said, what shit. I can't do it. I just can't do it. Romances don't have to end that way. Marriages don't have to end that way. They don't have to end in violence, for Christ's sake, And let the audience find out and make up its own mind about what's going to happen to Bogey and when he goes outside of the apartment area, which was the first apartment I lived in Hollywood, by the way. This is a very personal film.
Bogart plays a neurotic screenwriter with a violent temper who is unjustly suspected of murder. The police investigation places an intolerable strain on his relationship with Gloria Grahame. Working within the studio system, Ray, like other directors, often had to relinquish control of a picture at the vital stage of editing.
How did you approach your cutting in Hollywood?
But I would cut every night after shooting.
As you went?
I'll usually have a rough cut of the film within a week after I finished.
When the young French critics first began to develop the auteur theory, the concept of the director as the central creative force in the making of a film was a new one. No other American director attracted more sustained enthusiasm from François Truffaut, Jean-Luc Godard, and their colleagues than Nicholas Ray.
Je crois que ce qui nous avait attirés, c'est qu'il y avait quelque chose d'européen chez cet homme d'Hollywood, en fait. Et qu'est-ce qu'il y avait d'européen? C'était peut-être la fragilité, la vulnérabilité des personnages principaux. Bien qu'il tournait quelquefois avec des vedettes comme John Wayne ou Humphrey Bogart, et ces personnages masculins n'étaient pas machos, ou Sterling Hayden, il y avait cette grande sensibilité, et surtout dans le traitement, je dois dire, des histoires sentimentales, qui donnaient une impression de très grande réalité, à une époque où le cinéma d'Hollywood n'était pas facilement personnel ou autobiographique. On avait toujours l'impression que les histoires d'amour dans les films de Nicolas Ray étaient des histoires vraies. J'ai dit une fois, et je suis prêt à le redire aujourd'hui devant cette caméra, j'ai dit une fois qu'un film comme Johnny Guitar a eu plus d'importance dans ma vie que dans celle de Nicolas Ray. C'est-à-dire que c'est un film pour lequel je me suis pris de passion dès que je l'ai vu. Mais j'étais critique au moment où je l'ai vu, j'ai écrit dessus, et j'ai écrit dessus plusieurs articles, et on a commencé d'ailleurs comme ça une correspondance avec Nicolas Ray. Mais je parlais de ça à propos de Johnny Guitar, qui est un film, effectivement, qui a une très grande importance dans ma vie. Je ne sais pas pourquoi, parce que je l'ai trouvé très fort, très profond, sur les relations hommes-femmes. Et je crois que c'est le seul film dans lequel j'ai vu traiter un thème qui est très intéressant dans un certain stade des relations amoureuses, qui est l'amertume. L'amertume de gens qui se sont aimés, qui ne s'aiment plus et qui se revoient. Et je crois qu'aucun film n'a traité ça aussi bien que Johnny Guitar.
I don't think that I could have gotten or I could ever get such a good acting teacher. I think he's the greatest teacher of acting in the world. I'm really excited by that. And the reason that I still work on the film, because I've wanted to leave, now since May, is because this relationship that I have with Nick is still very exciting. The energy is still very high.
You don't even take time with me anymore.
Play your part or else get your ass off the set. My concentration is on him in this angle, and I don't want your personal hostility or whatever the hell you are feeling to take a part in the film. At this point, not at all. Not at all, at all, at all, Leslie. Well, hell, I've only had 2 fights with actors in my life, really. And you use what is of their essence at the moment, because that is their easiest reference point, and you have to be aware of that and how to agitate it, how to make it work for you in the scene, what their immediate concern is. No cast is ever made up of really the same people, the same background. So you have to use all the techniques you've ever learned, whether it's that of what you learned from a vaudevillian or from an old leading man like Fuller Mellish, who came over with Henry Irving and Minnie Madden Fisk, or burlesque people like Red Buttons, or Phil Silvers, or from miners or shrimp fishermen, or your own peers as you grow up at the theater. It's a Cary Grant, for instance, is a fellow like Duke Ellington has in his trunk so many tunes. Well, Cary Grant has so many notes of sunsets, so many jokes, so many things that he's collected and remained collecting every single year of his life, you know. That his memory, his effective memory, is always implemented by an easy reference. Most film courses or film classes concentrate on, getting rid of the responsibilities to the students as quickly as possible by putting them off in corners and shooting 8mm films, which they can do all by themselves and present for a senior thesis. Therefore, the emphasis is on kind of static camera with with cute ideas or masturbatory ideas or date-making ideas or anything except the relationship with other human beings. And film is a collective art. It's an eclectic art, it's a collective art. And it's, by its own nature, become the most communicative art that we have in the world. And the only 2 great ambassadors we've ever had from the United States have been jazz and film. And that doesn't come from sitting off in a corner.
I first saw In a Lonely Place when I was probably 14 years old. It had a very powerful effect on me. I was both frightened by it and yet drawn to its almost hypnotic power. Having seen In a Lonely Place numerous times and in a sense been haunted by it, I went looking for the building where it was set. So here we are in the Courtyard apartment on Harper in West Hollywood. Last time I was here, a couple of decades ago, that security gate wasn't there, sign of the times. And this is the building where Nicholas Ray lived when he first came to Los Angeles. It's the building that was replicated on the soundstage at Columbia. In a Lonely Place. It's a title that works on several levels. First, there's the lonely place of any man, any human who is struggling with their internal demons. Then there's the lonely place that an artist exists in. And then, of course, it's the lonely place, the world without love. One of the things that's unique about In a Lonely Place is, ostensibly, it's about a murder. Who killed Mildred Atkinson? And yet, as the movie unfolds, that is a question that is not of great interest either to the key characters or, in fact, to us, except how it impacts on the key characters. Bogart gave quite a few great performances in movies. What I think is particularly special about his portrayal of Dixon Steele is one feels that there is almost an absence of acting, an absence of technique, that we are actually seeing the essence of the man, and in fact, seeing things that he himself perhaps did not want to reveal at other times. What's so powerful about the performance, and so admirable, I think, especially when you know that his own company produced the movie, is how ugly it is. He looks physically ugly at times. We see his vulnerability, we see his fear, we see his needs. What I came to realize as I became a filmmaker myself was that you're not just seeing a great performance by an actor, but you're seeing the essence of that actor, and in fact, you're understanding the essence of the filmmaker himself. This kind of collaboration between actor and director is, I think, for me, the highest thing to aspire to. I think every really good actor longs for that kind of collaboration, but you can only have it if you have trust, if you have a director who is out there with them, creating a movie that supports that kind of performance. When the collaboration works that way, there is a marriage of content, acting, and style that is staggering. Collaborations that come to mind that also achieve that are James Stewart and Alfred Hitchcock with Vertigo, for example. Gena Rowlands and John Cassavetes with A Woman Under the Influence. John Wayne and John Ford with The Searchers. Each of these pictures, I think, is a masterpiece because of that collaboration. And I very much put In a Lonely Place in that lofty category. The talk about Laurel Gray is that Ginger Rogers might have played it, or Lauren Bacall, which makes sense given her relationship with Humphrey Bogart. But as happens with the best of movies, the actor who played the part owns the part forever, and there can only be one Laurel Gray in anybody's mind, and that's Gloria Grahame. Beautiful enough to be an aspiring actress, yet not so beautiful to be untouchable. While not an artist, one feels that she's able to both understand Dixon Steele and also support him, inspire him, nurture him. Their relationship, witty, confrontational, provocative, one feels is so much richer in its potential than any other relationship in the movie. Nicholas Ray studied architecture with Frank Lloyd Wright. I have no idea to what degree this architectural background consciously influenced him. What I do know is that Nicholas Ray had a flawless, almost peerless sense of geography and created a world within his movies by his selection of locations and design of locations. Take this Spanish courtyard building. He would never have modeled the location on the place where he lived just for sentimental reasons or as a snapshot of his own life. I'm sure the reason that he picked this building to be the model for Dixon Steele's house is that it so represents a certain kind of architecture in Los Angeles that one associates with the romance of the place. In a Lonely Place is dissecting the romance of Hollywood, or peeling it back and letting us look at everything that goes on behind that romantic facade. I think it's one of the best movies ever made about Hollywood. Nicholas Ray and his screenwriter, Andrew Solt, used this murder mystery to, in fact, indict Hollywood, indict this industry that feels at times like it is all about making money at the expense of creativity. By making Dixon Steele a screenwriter, they have him be both an artist and also powerless within the Hollywood system. It's somewhat ironic that throughout the course of the movie, as they are discussing the screenplay that Dixon Steele is supposed to write, everybody keeps saying to him, just do the book, Dix, just do the book. In other words, just give them what they want. Don't bother being creative. And here, in reality, what was going on was they had taken this novel by Dorothy B. Hughes, and rather than just giving them the book, we're reinventing it, transforming it into something far more personal and, to my mind, far more meaningful. The end result is, I think, a model of adaptation in that they found something in the source material that inspired them. They used it to create a work of art that stands alone in its own right, that in fact feels both individual and highly personal. Dorothy B. Hughes's Mystery is the story of a person who in fact is a psychotic killer. That's the greatest difference between the novel and the movie. He is guilty, whereas in the movie, Dixon Steele is somebody who is suspected of being a killer and certainly has the capacity, one feels, within him, not only for violence, but probably to kill. One of the other interesting differences between the novel and the movie is that the novel is about a character who is watching women, following women, longing for them, and in fact killing them. Whereas in the movie, Dixon Steele is a character who women are watching, who are fascinated in him. We are all drawn to Dixon Steele for the same reasons. Then it is turned on its head, and we, in a sense, go through the same emotions that she goes through. And that's one of the beautiful things about the movie, is the identification that we have that first starts with Bogart and then shifts to her. And we start becoming worried not only about the love between the two of them, because we want Bogart to have that love, we want him desperately to save himself, but we also have good reason to worry about her. His creativity seems to be inexorably wed with the extremes at which he operates emotionally. That, of course, is one of the themes of this movie: trust, fear of betrayal. You literally see Bogart and Gloria Grahame come to life as they discover their relationship, and then you see it slowly disintegrate as fear and suspicion takes hold. And once it's gone, that trust. Not only has their love been destroyed, but you feel he's been destroyed, because he'll never again find someone who could potentially help him deal with his demons the way that Laurel Gray might have. There was a version of the script, in fact, I think it was the final shooting version of the script, that had a completely different ending on it. But Dixon Steele, in his fit of rage, killed Laurel Gray and then finished his screenplay. And the final lines of the picture were read off his page rather than Laurel mouthing the words. And I've heard that they actually shot that ending, and that instantly Nicholas Ray decided to do something else. And I say instantly, meaning that it was not tested and screened and the audience didn't like it or whatever, but I think it didn't feel right to him. And that he had the principal players there, and he just shot a new ending on his own and shot the ending that we all know. That ending that he shot, I think, is one of the saddest endings in movies, you know, where Bogart walks away alone through that arch, a man completely without hope. And equally importantly, we have no hope for him. Where did that come from?